I know that a lot of people who watch my videos are still holding on to their first generation Pixel Fold, and now that we are 2 generations on, not just a sequel, but a sequel to the sequel, many of you are wondering, is it finally time to upgrade, and has the Pixel 10 Pro Fold done enough to pull you away from this form factor which so many of us absolutely adored? So in this video, I'm going to try to kind of give you a breakdown of these two devices, and I'm going to let you kind of decide for yourself if it finally is time, if Google has done enough to actually warrant upgrading from the original Pixel Fold to the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. And let's start off by talking about that form factor, because it's the first thing that you're going to notice. A lot of us, absolutely, like I said, loved the first gen Pixel Fold because you have this sort of best of both worlds scenario, right? You have what is essentially a mini phone that doesn't have the downsides of any mini phone. When you put something like the Pixel Pro XL next to this device, you can really get a sense of just how much smaller, how much shorter it is. It's really not any more skinny, any more narrow. It's really just a shorter device, but that for me is a really good thing because it makes it a lot easier to reach the top of the screen. It's a screen that is infinitely more one-handable than other devices. But like I said, sometimes you're using a small screen like this and you think to yourself, I kind of want to have a big screen. And guess what? That's when you just open the thing up and then you have a large screen. And it's not just a large screen, it is a large screen that is wider than it is tall, which I still really, really like. Now, when we bring in the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, you don't really have that same experience, right? This is a very large phone. It's not as large as perhaps like the XLs, but it is so close. We are really not talking about a small difference. This is not the same sort of one-handable phone that we're talking about. You have to completely lose your pinky grip and like shift to get to the top of that screen. So it's not the same experience. Now, I will say that in terms of just raw width, they are basically the same. So we do have the same width, we just have a lot of height added to the top of the screen. And then when you open the thing up, you do have a device that's going to be quite good at split screen multitasking because it is quite wide, but it's basically a square, whereas the original, like I said, is a little bit wider than it is tall. So on both of these, if I do this, and let's just grab another application, we'll just do Feedly on both of these, you can see the difference in the experience that you're going to have. I don't know, there's just something about the original Pixel Fold that just has a certain charm to me. And maybe it's because I was a Surface Duo user. I don't know exactly what it is, but that is your difference there. Now, we do also have to talk about some other things as well when it comes to just the design of these different phones. So the original Pixel Fold is still, I think, quite reasonably thin. And honestly, when it comes to these thickness battles, I think we get a little bit carried away. I think that the original Pixel Fold is thin enough for most people. It's also, though, a little bit heavy. And the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is also still a little bit heavy. When you compare it to something like the Z Fold 7, I can have a case on it and a grip on it, and it's probably about the same weight at that point. Like, that's the kind of difference that we're talking about. So Google did shave off a little bit of weight here. So if that is the thing that has bothered you, that it feels like you've got a brick in your pocket all the time, this is slightly less brick-like, but not a huge difference. But of course, Google has made some other changes beyond what I've just talked about. One big one is going to be the hinge. You have a 2-generation newer hinge. With the original Pixel Fold, the hinge kind of has to have a little bit more pressure to go fully flat. And you guys know, quite famously, this is my third first-gen Pixel Fold. The first two had inner screen failures, and we can blame some of that likely on the hinge. This new hinge feels much better. It does fold completely flat. It is a gearless cam-based hinge, and it should, in theory, lead to a more durable device in many different manners. They advertise IP68 dust and water resistance. Whether or not you believe them fully on that dust resistance part is up to you. I don't think that that means exactly what we think that it means, that you can take this thing to the beach and so forth, throw it in the sand and you're going to be fine. I don't buy that, but it is a thing that they advertise. Now, when it comes to these screens, we've talked about the size, the aspect ratios. I'll also say that the 10 Pro Fold screens are, in both cases, open and closed. They are brighter than the original Pixel Fold. So if this is a device that maybe you've had trouble using outside, you're going to have a lot less trouble over here. This is still not quite as bright in terms of sustained brightness as my Galaxy Z Fold 7, but it's very, very good. Now, both of these devices do also have stereo speakers that are positioned the same way. You have a speaker up here and a speaker down here. That means you have stereo audio no matter how the device is positioned. But let's take a quick moment and actually see how these speakers sound, because I think that the 10 Pro Fold speakers are quite good. Let's see how competitive this is. Let's do the original Pixel Fold first. And we'll do the Pixel 10 Pro Fold now. That is actually surprisingly close. Going back and forth, the biggest difference I can tell is the 10 Pro Fold seems to have a bit more body, a bit more bass. It's a bit of a fuller sound, but that is actually much closer than I was expecting it to be. The volume seemed very, very similar to me. Now, something that's not similar is battery life and battery size. I guess that's really kind of one and the same in some ways. This thing has a significantly larger battery, and let me just tell you, it is a battery champ. This thing is an all-day and then some phone. I am routinely going to bed 6-7 hours of screen on time, like really heavy use days for me, and I've still got like 30-40% of the battery left. It is approaching something like the Honor Magic V5. It's a lot better than the Z Fold 7, fairly significantly better than the Z Fold 7, and fairly significantly, really about the same gap, I would say, between the Fold 7 and the Pixel Fold. The Fold 7 is probably a little bit better than the Pixel Fold, so the gap between these two, the 10 Pro Fold and Pixel Fold, in terms of battery life is massive. And it doesn't just stop there. I did a charging test, and going from 50% to 75%, the 10 Pro Fold charged at about 1.5% per minute, and this device was about 1% per minute. So it did actually charge faster as well. And when you're going, a large amount of a charge, like a large charging session, going from 30% to full, that's going to actually add up to being a pretty big difference. And of course, this is running the Tensor G5 and this is running the Tensor G2. And if you run your benchmarks, there's going to be a really, really large gap between these two devices. I will quickly show you the 3D Mark scores, even though I don't really put like a ton of stock in those. This does not want to run 3D Mark apparently today. There we go. I don't put a lot of stock in benchmarks in general, but I will show you anyways. This is the test to be looking at. We're looking at 1899 versus 3000. It dropped to 1457 under continuous load. It got hot and it throttled. This only dropped to 2666 and it was more stable. Now this is a gaming benchmark. Gives you just a general idea. When you're using the phones though, you're not going to see a massive, massive difference between these two. We'll close things out and we'll fire up a couple of applications and you can kind of see for yourself what we're dealing with. That is basically neck and neck. The thing that I love about Pixel devices in general is that Google does such an incredible job when it comes to software optimization that you end up, even with a device that's quite a bit slower. This was not logged in. That was a bad test. We'll try that again. Even with a device that is significantly slower, look at that. I mean, it still keeps up in a really, really, really impressive way. We'll do Discord as well, see if that's the same. I mean, it's really, really, really close. So if you were hoping that this would feel significantly faster, it's not necessarily the case. I guess we should do a little bit more than just that, though. Let's jump into Google Photos, and we'll try a couple of things and just see which device ends up kind of handling this stuff better, doing these sorts of things faster. Given that a lot of this is using AI, some of it's on device, some of it's off device, you would think this phone would be faster, but man, that is really, really not a big difference at all. Add some flowers to the lower left corner. So we're off and running at the exact same time. Again, this is Magic Editor, so it should be happening in the cloud. But, you know, the Fold 7 did this faster than the Pixel 10 Pro Fold. And look at that, the original Pixel Fold actually did it slightly faster as well. That's interesting. What about when it comes to selecting things with Magic Editor? That was extremely close, essentially exactly the same. Wow, I'm actually like kind of shocked at how well the original Pixel Fold is handling this. We're going to grab a video that I shot on another device, and we're going to do the auto enhance thing just to make it look a little bit better. That was at the same time. Now we're going to see both devices render out this video. Is there a big difference there? No. No, there really isn't. Is this impressive for the Pixel Fold, or kind of disappointing for the Pixel 10 Pro Fold that the original is holding up so well? Just out of curiosity, we're going to try to create a world in Minecraft, and we're going to use a template on both of these. So in theory, we should load into the same world in the same spot, and in theory, the PowerVR GPU, this is a, you know, again, Tensor G5, Tensor G2. This should be faster, and in this instance, it did manage to at least load Minecraft quite a bit faster, and you can see that we are in the same location, more or less. And again, you know, both of these devices are going to run the game just fine. It's just a matter of, you know, that initial loading in. Doesn't look like either one of them is using the new vibrant visuals, and not an option on either one of these, which is, you know, kind of, I guess, understandable for the original Pixel Fold. On the Pixel 10 Pro Fold, it's a little bit disappointing because this GPU can totally handle ray tracing. They just don't have it enabled. Maybe there's a driver update coming. But when it comes to normal real-world performance, I'm just not seeing a huge difference between the two. So when it comes to the cameras, if you just look at the specs of the camera sensors, they are effectively identical. You have a 1x, of course, the primary, you have an ultra-wide, and you have a 5x optical zoom. But when you actually take photos, you do start to see fairly significant differences. And I think the Pixel 10 Pro Fold is the better camera system because of better processing. If we look at some images here, this first one is taken with a 2x digital zoom. So we're just cropping in on the primary sensor. And if I zoom in onto my National Geographic books, you can see there is effectively no detail there at all. But if we go to the 10 Pro Fold, which has almost the identical sensor, and we do the same thing, is this legible? No. But is it a pretty marked improvement? Absolutely. Somehow, something Google is doing with a 2x crop, even look at some of the detail on the bricks there of the edge of my fireplace. Something that Google is doing with 2x crops has really dramatically improved the quality, and it's not just improved over the original Pixel Fold, it's improved over the 9 Pro Fold as well. Now, if you use the 5x sensor, things are obviously going to be a lot better, but notice how kind of washed out everything looks. This is another thing that they did on the Pixel Fold 1 and on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold that they've kind of corrected for on the 10 Pro Fold. Where was the saturation? They kind of just got rid of it to a large degree. 10 Pro Fold has color. You can see another example of this here. My dog just has no color. He's just washed out. Here, that is much more accurate. Look at these flowers. Now, at first blush, you would think this looks pretty good. It's absolutely passable, and I could go into my settings and I could boost saturation a little bit. But look at the 10 Pro Fold. Look how much punchier and more colorful this image ends up being. Basically, everything else is the same. The amount of depth of field, the amount of bokeh, all that's the same. But I think that the 10 Pro Fold just handles color and exposure much better. And it handles digitally zooming on the primary sensor much better as well. And of course, you have to consider that on the original Pixel Fold, you only have 3 more years of updates coming. They may do like security patches and stuff longer than that, but of like true updates, only 3 years remaining, and you're already starting to see some things not really come back to that device. A big one, desktop mode. That Pixel Fold does not have the ability to be plugged into a monitor and have its display appear on that monitor. So you're never going to get desktop mode on that device. 10 Pro Fold has 7 years of updates remaining. So that could be a pretty big difference to you as well. All in all, this is a lot closer than you may think that it's going to be. If you really love that form factor, you could make a case that it's not time yet to upgrade to the 10 Pro Fold. The camera is definitely a little bit better, but the form factor is what it is. The screens aren't a huge difference. One is definitely brighter than the other. The speakers are very, very similar. Maybe you want that newer hinge, more durability. That definitely makes sense as well. But in normal day-to-day, moment-to-moment use, just not that big of a difference. And then you got to consider how cheaply you can grab the original Pixel Fold. Let's just go to Amazon and I'll show you. You can get these things all day, every day for less than $500. I mean, that is absolutely insane. So if you're comparing $1,800 versus less than $500, that's a decision that I think is actually worth thinking about. Guys, let me know what you do think about this. Do you have the original Pixel Fold? Was the 10 enough to upgrade for you? Are you still holding out for a much bigger change? Are you holding out hope against hope that they will revert to the old form factor? Drop that comment down below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content just like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.